Defender was produced by Williams Electronics Incorporated, a Goliath in the solid-state electronic pinball industry, and first appeared in arcades in 1980. I've lost track of the hairstyles I wore in 1980, but suffice it to say that on occasions more than one would occupy my young head at any time. I would contest that 1980, at the time, was a significant year for futuristic idealism. But I was only 7 years old, and idealism for me came in the shape of my first console, a Philips video pack, known in the States as the Magnavox Odyssey. The word Odyssey also featured in the title to Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece 2001: A Space Odyssey, an epic of human evolution, technology, artificial intelligence and extraterrestrial life. It was never clear if the film was meant to be set in the year 2001 or whether it just sounded futuristic back in 1968, but I often wonder with hindsight whether Kubrick could have chosen a better year for man's first encounter with the monoliths. 1980, for instance. 2001 was a terrible year for futuristic ideals as it turned out. The Earth was beset by violence and disaster, of origins animal, vegetable and mineral. Think back to the terrorist attacks of 9/11, the UK foot and mouth crisis, the sentencing of British politician and novelist Jeffrey Archer to 4 years imprisonment for perjury and perverting the course of justice, the invasion of Afghanistan, the introduction of the iPod, the election of George W. Bush, the death of George Harrison, the police service of Northern Ireland replacing the controversial Royal Ulster Constabulary, the bankruptcy of Enron, the tragic death of singer and actress Alaya from severe burns and head injuries following an air crash, which was found to have been caused by the fatal combination of making an unscheduled early return from filming a video to rock the boat in an aircraft whose structural weight limit was exceeded by 320 kilograms by the crew and equipment, flying by a pilot who had no approval to pilot the plane, having falsified information in order to obtain both his FAA licence and his employment, and whose autopsy revealed traces of cocaine and alcohol. And the first movie instalments of the Harry Potter series and Lord of the Rings trilogy. 1980, by comparison, marked the beginning of an epoch in which mankind became both master and victim to technology, as well as environmental destruction, viral pandemics, geopolitics, video gaming and popular culture, with the release of Pac-Man, Asteroids and Defender, Iron Maiden's self-titled debut album, the release of the Metro, a 3-door entry-level hatchback designed by British Leyland as the eventual replacement for the Mini, the resignation of James Callaghan from the British Labour Party, the shooting of John Lennon in New York City, and the release in cinemas of Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, Friday the 13th, The Fog, Fame, The Shining, Mad Max, Airplane, The Blues Brothers, The Blue Lagoon, Caddyshack, and Smokey and the Bandit 2. My first experience of Defender was at Gloucester Leisure Centre after swimming practice. Like many others, I was intimidated by the control scheme on Defender, but immediately took to the fast, horizontal scrolling game mechanics. Graphically, the game was an improvement in the order of an entire generation of hardware from a monochrome vectors of asteroids. The ship looks solid and jetted about convincingly, complete with Technicolor thrust flames and the deep white noise of rocket engines. Lasers ripped through the gently twinkling sky like a drunken yell from the bus stop. Landers, as the common enemy of you and the astronauts you are defending, made for satisfying cannon fodder, but transformed into malicious turbocharged nuisance following a successful abduction. Later levels introduced bombers, betas, pods, and swarmers, each requiring tactical mastery. If all astronauts are captured, the planet will explode, and the atmosphere resembles Leeds on a Friday night after A-level results go up. Returning to this awesome game in 2012 is like returning to a bubble bath made for you 32 years ago and finding it to still be warm. The version tested here is from the appallingly titled Midway Presents Arcade's Greatest Hits. This was released on the Sega Saturn, as well as the Genesis, SNES and PS1. It is worth noting that the Saturn version was only available in the US. The compilation features 6 games from Williams' early arcade success. Defender 2, otherwise known as Stargate, is also generously included, adding enhanced graphics, new enemies, cloaking and warping to the package. Unfortunately, the sequel suffers from slowdown during explosions, but this might be also due to a weakness in the emulation software. 2 further shoot-em-ups are included. The first is Robotron 2084, a manic fixed-screen arena shooter, which incidentally secretly allows dual joystick control on the Saturn Virtual Stick Pro, in direct simulation of the arcade controls. The second is Sinistar, another top-down arena shooter, but with a wraparound play area. Anyway, in Sinistar, you fight hordes of craft competing to mine the planets for shards of crystal, which you turn into bombs and the enemies use to build the menacing mothership Sinistar.
Beware, coward. I am Sinistar.
The 2 remaining games on this compilation do not inspire any nostalgia in me. They are Joust, an unplayable fixed-screen battler, and Bubbles, a Pac-Man clone set in a sink. To cap this package off, you get about 15 minutes of FMV interview footage with the guys at Williams, giving you plenty of insight into the highs and lows between 80 and 82 at the height of their success in the arcade business. Here are a few clips.
At the time, for our development system, we used this thing called a Motorola Exerciser, which was this huge, probably the most bloated, overpriced computer ever created. Mostly the game was empty because everybody was so afraid of the game. I guess it was all the buttons. We just had so many buttons on there that, people just go, man, I just can't deal with this. I know, we were proud that it intimidated everyone, It's like, we're kind of proud that the game, freaked people out, It was kind of, people kind of, I thought it was kind of a bomb, the buzz on the show was like Pac-Man and Defender were like bombs. Pac-Man because it just played forever and it wasn't exciting, and Defender was way too complicated to play. And people were thinking this game Rally X, which was a little car racing game, was the big game of the show. We stuck it out in an arcade, and the first night, I didn't even show up. You stick this thing out. You've been working on this thing for months. You almost got fired. There was a point where I cleaned out my desk. In the dark days when I was working on the astronauts, I'd actually cleaned out my desk and had put all my stuff in boxes. I was that close to just quitting. And so I just didn't want to, I didn't want to find out what people really wanted. So I didn't show up first night. And second night I go out to the arcade, and the place was there was people 10 deep watching Defender. There was people sitting on chairs and couches and camped out around this game. And at that point I figured, wow, this is kind of cool.
Those kids found out that if you only had one life left and you got into that death grip where it was about to destroy you, and then the warrior shot came and killed you, the warrior shot would reduce your lives to 0, and then the Sinistar would kill you, which would reduce your number of lives left to -1. And in the computer world, -1 is also a really big number. And all of a sudden, you'd have 255 lives left. And Lord knows how the kids would find these things. But I knew kids that could show me this in an arcade. They go up and say, look at this. And all of a sudden, they have 255 lives. And man, you can play for a long time on Sinister. You've got 255 ships left. That quality that I saw back then, it still stands out. The fellow who was in charge of that decision-making process, Noah Falstein, decided he was nervous that we'd get in a lot of trouble, too much trouble for putting an Easter egg in. So he buried the thing so deep down that I can't even remember this complex series of things that you have to do to get it to show up. Guaranteed no one ever find it.
Okay, it's three. Each of the sequences are three combinations of buttons being pressed, and you have to do combination 1, and then within a quarter of a second, when you let go of combination 1, you have to be on combination 2 within a quarter of a second. Then when you let go of combination 2, you have to be on combination 3 within a quarter of a second, and you have to do all this without dying in gameplay. I've got a Robotron down in my basement, and it's like, every now and then, I just have to go down and kick its butt. I mean, it's just, I've got to, just kick its ass. And unfortunately, if I haven't played in a while, I'll get down there, and it'll just humiliate me. Now, every Robotron player that's really into it, and these days plays it at 10. You have to play it at total maximum difficulty. Otherwise, you can just play it forever, and it's not interesting. But at 10, it is a real nasty, mean game. And it takes you maybe an hour or two just to get warmed up. The game will just kick your ass and humiliate you, and you'll get 80,000 or 100,000 or 150,000. And you're just crying out, and you just like want to kill it. You're grabbing the game by the joysticks, and you're just shaking it and slamming it on the wall. And eventually, you get to the point. It's almost like warming up for a basketball game or something. You get to the point. You're sweaty. And you've got this kind of attitude. You cannot win until you have this attitude, this total mindset of just total concentration and total rage. You've got to be...
So it's back for some scores. Midway Arcade's greatest hits deserves nothing less than an 80 out of 10. By today's standards or yesterday's standards, these are some of the best shooting games money can buy. Thanks for watching. Until next time.